Welcome to Almonds and Coconuts, where we talk about slice of life topics focusing on traumatizing, embarrassing, and childhood stories from Indian kids living in America. We don't have Arjun today, so it's me, Harshita, doing the intro. So, hi.
Joining us today, we have a guest, Krithika. This is her first time being on the podcast, so yes. And I'm Shiny, and then we have Harshita
Krithika, you
too.
want to introduce yourself? You can go for it. You can say anything you want.
Hello. I am another junior, and I'm looking forward to being on this podcast.
Yay. Okay, so the topic today, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's like basically small things in our small events in your life when you were currently living through it, you didn't really think much of it and nor did you care much about it. But like looking back later on in life, you're like, wow, that event was actually worth so much more than I thought it would have been. I hope that makes somewhat sense. I feel like as we talk about it, it will make more sense. So, does
Yes.
anyone want to start or should I start off?
Yeah. If you got one, you could start off.
Okay, this one, I feel like this one is, I've said the story before, but it was literally actually about you, Shiny. It was going up to you in fourth grade. It was like one of the first days of school, like probably one of the, like sometime during the first week or whatever. And we had a similar carpool lady at that time for a short period of time. And I remember she told me, it was like she told a couple of us to like go up to this girl to tell her that she's here for ready for her to be picked up, right? And I think I was like, I remember that you were in my class one of the first days of school, and I went up to you saying, "Hey, this lady is picking us up. She's here." And I feel like it maybe wouldn't have done much, but I feel like because of that, like we actually started talking on the way to the car and when we were in the car. I feel like that was a huge thing, and as to why I'm so friends with you to this day. So you're like, because at that moment, even if we were in the same class, like we may have not have started talking if I hadn't done the initiative to go and find you, if that makes sense.
Right, like the memories that I have of you in fourth grade, like near the beginning of the school, I never like really thought much. I was like, oh, this girl is nice, she's cool, and her friends also seem cool. But I always thought it was something that maybe like I knew it was like a new type of beginning of some sort, although I didn't realize that it would be like this big
Yeah.
until now. And like, look at us, now we're friends for like 7 years. So it,
Yeah. Oh, that's
yeah,
so weird. Ew. Oh,
yeah.
Krithika, do you have one or do you have like a similar experience?
well, it's not exactly similar. I mean, that's really sweet though. It's like your fates intertwine. It sounds like like a storybook.
Honestly,
Uh,
Loki.
yeah, mine is like the first thing I could think of that made a big impact is like I'm really involved in music, and I didn't really get strongly involved. Like I never thought of music as something that I really am passionate about until like I came to seventh grade. So that was like when I moved to a new place, and then like in my new middle school, I'd planned to join orchestra since I'd been doing violin for a while, but like
Mm-hmm.
that school didn't have an orchestra, and most kids they were like doing automation and robotics or like 3D design or some class like that, and I was thinking of taking that, but my mom encouraged me to like rejoin like a band because like I did alto saxophone for like 1 year in fourth grade and then stopped. So I just like I was like I'll take my chances, and plus like when I spoke to the band director there, he told me I could join like the concert band, and that sounded really big to me, like concert band, it sounded so advanced.
Mm-hmm.
So I just like decided to retry that instrument. And initially it was kind of hard because I was coming in a class where there were like a bunch of kids who kind of already had some experience on their instrument. But I think that band director really made me start to like music. And it was a school with a really good band program. And I think like from that kind of since then I've been like, really steeped in like activities involving music. So I'd say that was a pretty big impact.
Oh, that's kind of cute. Like, that's actually really sweet that your band teacher really like band director or whatever you call them.
Yeah, he's really
They
into.
really pushed for it. Like,
I
I
do.
feel like if you didn't have that push, I feel like you also wouldn't be, as much of into music as you are today.
I could attest to her hard work. Like every day, like me and Krithika, we go to the same school, and like in ninth grade, like every lunch, she would practice her like oboe. And honestly, like I would feel so proud of you, bro. Like I'm like, dang, Krithika's
Aw.
like really taking that like initiative and like working towards something that she's passionate about, and like taking her own time out of her day, like her free time to do what she loves. And like that's always something like I admired about you, because you'd always like put that hard work in, and anyone around you could see that with just like a glance. So I
Thank
dang,
you.
Mhm. Okay, Shiny, how about you? Me and Krithika wanted you
okay.
to say
So
something.
this was when I was 5, no, 4, something like that. So I used to live in India before I moved here when I was like 5. So this is like when I was like in preschool, and there used to be this Christian like old lady in front of my house. And I think I like just moved to Bangalore. That's where I used to live in India. And she knew Telugu, even though I think she was like Kannada, but she knew Telugu. And I kind of hit it off with her because I called her Amama, which means like grandma, because she looked like one of my grandmas, right? So I think that's where we hit it off. And I never really thought much about it then, because like I'd just go to her house and we would like pray to Jesus, and we'd like eat bananas, and she would give me chai. And that's like one of my most fondest memories of her, because she treated me like a grown up, which I never really felt like well, obviously I was like 3 years old, but like it felt nice to be treated that way, because like chai is tea is like considered like a grown up thing, like you would sip it talking about grown up things, but she would give it to me and we would like sit on her porch and talk about my day at school. And I felt like, and since I didn't spend that much time with my grandparents when I was that age, because they lived in different places in India, I felt like she was like my third grandma in a way, and
Oh,
I didn't think much about it. But now I don't even know whether she's like alive or not. But whenever I think about like grandparents, I always also think about her. So she really helped me like make my stay at Bangalore like more pleasant, because like sometimes I'd have bad days and I would always go to her. And yeah, so
oh,
she
that's
was
so adorable.
Yeah.
That's so cute. Oh my god.
like, cause like I wasn't even like Christian, but she was so like nice. Like sometimes she'd be like, let's pray to the Hindu gods, and then we'd like pray to them, and then we'd pray to Jesus, and it was like, God, it's so wholesome, bro. She was such a nice lady.
Oh, that's really sweet. And that's like, oh my god, that's so adorable. I mean, imagine like a little 3-year-old just discussing about her school day, like right now, and it's like that's so adorable,
Little shiny.
Dude,
right?
I loved playing grown up with her. Like she saw me. Like this is so cringy, but like, but she actually like that. Those few moments that I spent with her, I would feel like someone saw me, like not like a 3-year-old, but a little older than that. But she did talk to me like a big kid.
Mm,
Like a big kid. Oh my god.
that did feel good when we were growing up.
Yeah, when
Feeling,
people like, or when big kids actually wanted to hang out with you, oh my god, the way
oh
that gassed
man,
my
yeah,
ego up. Like,
yeah.
big kids like me. And then I became the big kid, and I'm like, oh.
Okay, yeah, okay, nothing's greater than when little kids say I like you, okay? Because little kids are known to be brutally honest. So if they give you their like approval, that's like the best thing in the entire world.
Right? Like, no, like screw the teenagers, bro. The little kid, that's the one I'm seeking validation from. No, because once they like you or whatever, they'll like always hang around you, and I find that so cute. Like it brings out like this like motherly instinct in me to just like care for them, and I'm like, oh my god, you're so cute. I just want to keep you in my pocket, kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
And then I start crying, and I'm like, okay, maybe we should take a few steps back.
All right,
Okay.
what other moment do you have, Rashida?
Um, I'll go. Okay, so I feel like this one everyone knows about me, but I think okay, so at my middle school, we used to do this. This was before I moved. So I went to two middle schools, but this was the middle school that took a majority of my middle school years. So back in my old city, the middle school that I went to, every Friday they did like music in the quad, right? And my friends and I, every Friday, that was the only day where we didn't sit where we normally sat. And so in 7th grade, we went to go sit at the quad to listen to music and just like vibe. And sometimes people would dance in the quad or whatever, right? It was rare, but it would happen. And I remember, like, normally I would be able to know all the songs, like, Call Me Maybe would play or whatever, and everyone in the quad would just start singing no matter what. Like, it was always good energy Fridays. Like, I loved Fridays for that reason. And then one day, I don't know which Friday, it was like early November. Early November. I don't know what day it was or whatever, but I do remember it was early November, like late August, late October, early November. And they were like, I knew mostly all the songs. And then they played this one song. And I was hooked onto it. I was like, this is so catchy. What is this song? And after a little bit of digging, I finally found the song and I immediately added it to my playlist and I listened to this song so much. Like, I honestly think it was one of my top played songs of 2017, but I was obsessed with this song. And because of that, this is the reason why I've discovered like four different genres, like four different languages of music. So, like, oh, okay, the song that they were playing was "Blood, Sweat, and Tears" by BTS, and because of that, I'm a huge K-pop like fan, and I love, and because of that, from K-pop, I discovered like K-R&B, K-hip hop, and also because of appreciating another language like music, I was also able to learn to appreciate my own, and I actually started adding Indian songs into my playlist, which I never did before. Like, I wasn't the type of person that really listened to like Indian music or whatever. But because of that, there's a reason why I listen to like 8 different languages. So I feel like that's a huge thing and it really did change a lot of my perspective on the world. It gave me a better appreciation for like music in general. So
Oh, that's so
Ooh.
nice.
does anyone else
Krithika,
have
do
another
you
one?
have one?
Yeah, actually, that reminded me like a lot of like I think Shiny knows this. You probably have seen it from my profile pictures, but I'm really obsessed with Studio Ghibli and
Oh, I love
everything.
Studio
Like,
Ghibli too.
yeah, yeah. It's like when I saw the first movie, like I saw Kiki's Delivery Service. So it's like about this 13-year-old girl. She goes to the city to kind of make a living. I mean, she's kind of like living the life, going to a city she's dreamed of, a city like by the ocean. And then the whole movie, there's really not much plot. It's simply her finding her way, like, and finding her passion in life, that kind
Mhm.
of thing. And it's like a coming of age thing. But like the animation and the soundtrack, everything just really stood out to me because I've never seen like a movie like that. And with that movie, I started getting really obsessed, like with the music that like a lot of Studio Ghibli soundtracks and like even a lot of their movies. Like by now I've seen like more than half of like all the Studio Ghibli movies. But it's actually I had a kind of similar experience to you in that once I started listening to their soundtracks, I also heard like a lot of their vocal soundtracks, which are like in Japanese,
Mhm.
and that then kind of introduced me to some J-pop music, which I really liked. And then through that, like Spotify recommended, I started hearing some K-pop, and then I went back to Bollywood music, and like I heard a lot of similarities between all these like music branches. So
Mhm.
yeah, I get what you mean by like how it also kind of teaches you to love your culture more.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it really told me that I'm allowed to branch out, you know?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
I know it's like sad because there are people who will still to this day will shame me for listening to K-pop, but like what can I do about it? It's just music in another language. They wouldn't say this stuff if it was in English, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
so I feel like it just gave me this whole new appreciation for music and the hard work that goes behind it because of that I got really into like watching these producers produce this music and I loved watching recording sessions of these like different groups. When they go into recording to like record their album or their title tracks or whatever, like I really enjoyed watching those because I liked seeing every step that they would take and the amount of takes they would take just to sing this 1 second line, like a line that you'll hear for a solid second, but you wouldn't put much thought into it. But they sang it like 50 times to get it to perfection. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like it really brought a new appreciation for music.
Yeah, I think Yeah, in general, when I hear anything like on Spotify, like that, one of the reasons I like Studio Ghibli music is, when I hear it, I could think of a scene that relates to it. And
Mm-hmm.
when you think of that scene or whatever work has been put into it, like if you hear those recording videos, like what goes behind the scenes, it just teaches you to appreciate it more. And like, there's
Yeah,
like more you could
exactly.
imagine with it, so it takes you to a different place, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
music transcends language, and that's something that I will always live by, you know?
Yeah, music is universal. Like, I think regardless of the language, like there shouldn't be any hate just because you like something that's in a different
Different
language.
language, yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Shani? Do you have another story to tell?
Um, I wanted to add on to the music thing because also I feel like it also connects a lot of people together because
Mm-hmm.
I remember like listening to this these like okay for some time I was like really into this like genre of music that people don't really listen to. Like it was like a selection. I think it was like Indonesian. I think
Mm.
I believe, but basically like no one really listened to it because it's not like those songs that I listened to weren't really popular. But then I met someone that shared like the same music taste as me. Like they liked those type of songs too. And honestly, like I didn't think I'd ever be friends with this person before because they just didn't seem like they had a lot of interest, like same interests as me. But once I found out that they also like that, I feel like it was like so much easier to bond with them. Which music does have a good way of doing. Like you could be friends with someone like who you never thought you would be friends with just by your music taste. Because you could just be jamming to the same song. And that I think is also very good because you can't exactly do it very easily with other topics. Like music, you could easily start a conversation about it or like what songs do you like with, shared artists that you both enjoy listening to.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, I think music
That's
also
pretty
definitely
cool.
creates bonds. Okay, tell us
Yep.
your story.
Okay, let's all right, I have like a small list here. Okay, I'm gonna talk about my first big presentation. Okay, so context. I used to be a very extroverted child before I moved to America, but once I moved here, I felt really self-conscious about my Indian accent because even like people that were Indian would start making fun of me because of how I pronounce words. So as a result, I kind of became more like closed off. Um, and during presentations, I would be like the last person to go, and the teacher would have to force me to go on stage. And when I did speak, it would be like mumbling, and I would get even more quiet once I like heard other people trying to like mock me for the way I said stuff. So I was like a very introverted person growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So and I mean I felt like there was nothing wrong with being introverted, but I wanted to like be able to participate sometimes in class. Like I would never be able to raise my hand or ask a question. And I felt like, that kind of needed to change, but because I was so scared of what my classmates thought of me, that just never happened. But in in fifth grade, I initially thought it was fourth, but in fifth grade, we have to do a presentation about like states. And I remember doing it about Virginia. And I was like, okay, this is the day that I shine. Okay, so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do what I can. Like, I think that was the moment when I kind of tried to push myself out of my comfort zone because I would like be known as like the quiet kid. Like people didn't even know my name. So at this point, I was like, you know what? I must do something. Like I can't go through school not talking like at all. I have to do something. And as someone who used to be extroverted, I knew how it felt like to be like a social person. So like I kind of wanted to bring that back in America. And I felt like if I didn't do it then, the older you get, it's harder to change habits. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm gonna get rid of it. So during that presentation, instead of presenting to the class, we had to do it in small groups, which I felt like was easier. So I was like, you know what, screw this. I'm gonna give it my best. And at the end, I was actually surprised because like my group mates had to rate each presentation, and they said that they really liked how engaging I was. And that was like the first compliment I ever got on my social like aspect of my presentations, which I felt really proud of because it was like the first presentation I ever did in which I didn't stutter. I didn't like mumble or look scared. Like I always speak as if I'm gonna cry the next second, like it's wavering, you know? And that was like the first presentation which I felt like completely confident. And that was like a big moment for me because my future presentations I kind of like faked that confidence, was like sometimes obviously there are bad presentations where you could easily tell that I'm super scared, but then I think that was like the moment where I became more confident in the way I spoke to people. So yeah.
Nice.
Okay, but go you. I can imagine little fifth grade Shiny, tilting it in a presentation.
Right? Like no one knew more about Virginia than I did.
That's the confidence you should have. Like in the presentation, just act like you know everything about it.
Right? Like that
And I
was
feel
when
like
I
that
first
generally
felt
helps you a
it.
lot.
Yeah,
Yes, fake it till you make it.
exactly. Yeah, and I think you've come a long way since then. Like I hear you like we're in the same English class, and I hear Shiny talk. She speaks in such an articulate manner. Like
Bro, I can say the same about you. Okay, you're
no, but
amazing.
okay, I stutter though. Like when I hear you talk, you know what you're talking about, and you know that's right. Like you don't stutter or anything. It's just like so up to the point, and it conveys everything so clearly. Like I'm
I
always so amazed.
But you should also give yourself some credit. Okay, I'm like not trying to be like, oh no, you too, fam. Like I genuinely mean it. Like when Krithika talks, she has a very eloquent way. No, she has a more so philosophical way. Like I can't. Okay, we were talking about you in the last podcast, and I was talking about how you have like such a like you don't the thing about me sometimes, yeah, sure, I don't stutter all the time, but I feel like I don't exactly know what I'm saying half the time. But you think your like thoughts out very clearly, and you say it exactly that way, and it's dude, I could listen to Kritika talk like for hours about like the randomest of stuff, but like I will be interested every single time because you say it in such a professional way, and I feel like it's especially during discussions. Like I like English discussions just so I could hear Kritika's like thoughts about each character.
I mean, I appreciate that, but I honestly don't. I really don't know what I'm talking about, like ever, and I don't think it makes any sense at all. But
Man, I mean, okay, as someone who listens to you, I gotta say you have a very, very like very advanced way of thinking when it comes to this story. I feel like most people like they just state the obvious, but you go into more depth about it and offer a new perspective, which I never thought about before. So, I do like the way you think too.
oh,
Yeah,
thanks.
I agreed with her. Like in
Yeah.
a short time, I obviously haven't known you as long as Shiny has, but in the over quarantine, I met you over quarantine, but like you have a very like you think deeply, and it's like you like to like I feel like you have a like she said, you're very philosophical in your way of thinking. Like you're someone that can like go for it, and I tend to hold back or make a joke out of it. Like you're someone that like goes on headstrong and likes to talk about it and really likes to get deep about it, which I feel like I really and I said this in the last I think I said this in the last episode, but I really admire that about you because that's something I wish I had, like I feel like sometimes I tend to struggle to be serious and you know when to be serious and when you do you're like super philosophical about it. You're like, yeah, I'm going to talk about this. This is what I'm going to talk about and I know what I'm saying.
Oh, I really appreciate that, but I think you're a really deep person too. I mean, before this, we were just talking about Lord of the Flies and like your whole perspective, like on if girls were instead of boys. I was just hearing it and I was like, dang, I never thought of it that way. Oh,
No, but like you're honestly like I honestly like you're like up there, man. You're like top. You're
oh
all of
no,
us are subpar.
no, and I appreciate it though. Like, I appreciate that maybe what I say it's not always gibberish because I never
No, it's
remember
not.
anything I say.
Don't worry, it's never gibberish. Like even like your statuses on Discord, bro, every single time they're so like aesthetic or like
uh,
pretty or have
I
deep
mean,
meaning behind it.
okay, I literally searched up anime deep quotes and I liked that quote, so I put it.
Hey, your
Yeah.
liking is very philosophical. Okay, like
Yeah.
all right, do you guys have any more events?
Me, honestly, my life is kind of boring. So I kind of just like stuck with two. But let me see. Let me go through my list and see if I actually honestly have any. Okay.
If you guys don't have one, I have one.
Okay, you go for it. Let me
Like,
give me some time to think.
All right. Okay, so you guys already know this, but when you live in like a traditional household, like I feel like we have like a lot of restrictions. Um, Obviously I don't have that much like compared to other families, but you know, like it's like the curfews and stuff, right? Like you always have to like act a certain way. So, like growing up, like I was always expected to be responsible, smart, obedient, like act nice to elders and stuff. And obviously those are all expected, but when you're like so forced upon like these types of like expectations, sometimes it becomes overbearing. And you know, when you like grow up, obviously like you want to rebel, right? So I think the first time I kind of rebelled from my parents' expectations was when I like dyed my hair. Because my parents, when they think of like a daughter, they think someone who's well composed, who's always has like this perfect like way of presenting themselves to society. Like, I don't know, like putting their hair in like a certain way or dressing a certain way. Like up to that point, I think my mom would have like word over everything, like how I dress, what I chose to wear, you know, like even like my hobbies, like or my interests in school, like she would be dictating everything. And I know that it comes with like a place of like care. Like she obviously cares for me and my future, but sometimes it like becomes a bit too much. So I think the first time I kind of went against what my parents wanted was when I like dyed my hair. And sometimes I know for some listeners that like might seem like a small thing, but for me when I did it, I felt so relieved. Like it was refreshing because it was something I was like for the first time that I did something to not satisfy my parents. Because every single time I would do something, I'd be like, what would my parents think about it? Like, would they be okay with it? How would my family view it? Like, I always try to do something that would make them happy. So I think for the first time, I did something that I wanted to do, like an impulse decision. And no matter how small and stupid it was, I kind of regretted it after because now it looks brown and ugly. But you know, I still don't regret doing it because it felt nice to do something that you know didn't necessarily like uphold my family's expectations. So that was like a small thing, but you know, it felt nice to do something like that.
Wow. I think I have something similar. Well, it was similar, but I think okay. Okay for me. If I ask something from to my parents and they say no, I immediately shut the idea down and I don't ever go and be persistent about it. I feel like that's just the way I grew up because I felt always guilty and I felt like they would be super annoyed if I continued asking. So I never was a I never really pushed for things. I was not very persistent. I gave things up easily when the answer was no, right? But like from I have so okay, for those who don't know, like obviously I have a dog and okay, it took me a long time to convince them to get us a dog. So my mom had a dog when she was younger. She was completely okay with it. But my dad was the one I like genuinely had to convince, and like it took years and years and years and like tons of research and just looking at stuff. And I feel like that was the one thing that I was like one thing in my life ever so far, like my entire life, I've never been so persistent to want something that bad other than this one time. And I feel like that really changed this like perspective of what my parents have of me because they know that I tend to just, give things up easily. I don't tend to be very persistent about what I want. But I feel like this really changed and showed that I do and I can take control and I can, like put in the energy when I really want something. And I feel like that just the fact that now that I do have a dog shows the actual result that my all my persisting and all my annoying of wanting one so badly actually worked. So
do you guys ever feel like a weight is just lifted off your chest? Because, like, after that event which your parents kind of prevented you from, like, having, or that thing, then they just kind of, life goes on as usual, and it feels like nothing has changed, but you have gotten that thing.
yeah, definitely. I think I can definitely see that.
Yeah, it's like every time I look at my hair, I'm like, you know, I made that happen, right? Like my parents didn't like it, but I did it anyway.
And
It's
they
like I think
respect it.
Yeah, like I think every teenager kind of has that like rebel moment, and it's not because we don't like what our parents say or like what they do. It's sometimes you just need to at some point do something for yourself, right? And it may not always go in line with what your parents want, but when you do that, it's a step closer, I feel like, to independence, and it comes
Hmm.
sooner or later, but whether you like it or not, it's gonna happen at some point, and it feels really nice when it does happen, I guess.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, I think when parents like when they tell you can't do something, they kind of want to shield you from the consequences of it. But if they
Mhm.
give you that independence, I mean, if there are consequences, then you know that you took that action. So for whatever good or bad happens, you're kind of confident and like that you saw that coming.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Like even if
Yeah,
it turned out like super bad, I would have still been like, at the end of the day, I did what I wanted to do. And that's all that matters, honestly.
exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think like a lot of the times, like you just, as much as it might be difficult, you just have to really push for it.
Mhm.
Because not pushing for it can like do a lot, and not like, not pushing for it can definitely not give you the result that you probably would have had now.
Right.
So
Mhm.
Oh, dude, I just thought of some small thing that happened in my life that it happened recently, but it's like a big accomplishment. So, you know how I talked about how I'm like not really like social sometimes, like in certain situations I kind of just close up. And when I ordered my first Starbucks drink like a year ago, like I think during quarantine, it was like honestly the best moment because like I was so scared like before, like I was like panicking. I didn't know what to say. And I was like practicing my order like 10 times in my head because I was so scared I was gonna screw it up. And I did screw it up like 5 times. But after that, it felt so good because I felt like I was like adulting. I was like, oh my god, guys, like this time I'm ordering a Starbucks drink. Like what? Next time I'm gonna be like doing my taxes. Like what is this? Like
no, I agree with that. I feel like I have huge social anxiety when it comes to that. Like I'm the kid that will push other people to go and ask for extra ketchup at a restaurant. Okay,
Mm.
you cannot make me do that. Like I have huge like anxiety when it comes to that. So I genuinely understand like the pure like pride and proud feel that you have just for even ordering something
But
because
like
it
whenever
takes a
my
lot.
parents are next to me, I'm like, yo, can you tell them that I want more like, more sugar in my drink or something? So it felt nice to do it myself. And, it's we're making it out there, like small steps, but it's
That's what matters. Okay, small steps will
yes,
always lead to something big, and
it's true.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember last summer I'd gone with Shiny to like a boba store and I was like asking her to order for me. I think I felt awkward because I dropped my spoon or something. And like I don't know. Shiny I had to like ask Shiny to do everything. I remember.
Yo, don't worry, man. Like I was also like I think people go at different paces, right? Like I also have sometimes when I'm like, yo, I don't feel like I could talk to them. Like, can you order for me? And honestly, like it's fine, right? Like it happens. So
It's kind of like the school lunch lines. Like, you know how it's so quick, right? Because there's like so
right.
many kids waiting in line. So they're like, what do you want? And you have to like quickly decide. So you have to like
Yeah.
prepare yourself for that moment as you're like waiting.
Exactly.
It's
Dude,
just
like the first time I ordered lunch, I was like, yo, because like it was so fast paced and people around like behind you were like waiting and you're like, oh God. And I remember once I like didn't look at the menus. I like didn't know what the options were and I felt so embarrassed because like everyone was like so they get so angry like after a few seconds, which I guess is understandable, but it was so pressurizing at that moment. But yeah, there are definitely social situations where, it still takes time, but it they're there.
progress is progress. Okay, progress is progress. No matter what the and like there'll be times where you will go back to like, okay, maybe I don't want to do it, but progress is progress, guys. That's what matters. It's
yes,
okay to step back a little.
and I mean, we are teenagers. It's like we're just going through an awkward time. I'm sure we'll come out of it at some point in our lives.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. So it's okay. We got this.
Yes. Okay, well, thank you, Krithika, for joining us on this podcast. It really means a lot to us. And
Yeah. I feel like it was nice to have someone that actually likes to think deep, you know? We love
yeah,
philosophical thinking and you're probably the only one that
It
will be
was my
willing to go there.
pleasure.
So,
Thank you for inviting me.
yeah,
we are going to
okay.
invite you a lot more. We really hope you to join us more, bro. You have a very, very nice way.
Interesting. Yeah, you have an interesting way of thinking and I feel like that's going to be really refreshing, you know?
Mhm.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. So,
So,
do you want to do it or should I do it?
yeah, well, that's all we have for today. We really hope you enjoyed. Um, and okay, we're so awkward because Arjun is normally the one that does this for us. But
Yeah.
yeah, so thank you
Yeah.
for listening, guys,
Yeah,
and we'll
do
see you
all
in the
the
next one.
things and stuff, you know, do all the
Yeah.
things. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.